Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty.
And the specialty is something that we definitely identified and we definitely noticed. All right, so here's the TikTok. I'm pretty sure you know about this already. Israel attacks Iran. Iran retaliates with missiles. I believe that Israel exhausted all of their viable strike sites when it came to their nuclear sites, because literally for the last few days, Israel has only been striking surface to air missiles and other like any air defense type of systems. I don't think they had any other viable strike sites, strike options for nuclear sites. In steps Big Brother, that would be us. And when we step in, there goes the bombing for the actual nuclear sites themselves. So U.S. has joined the fight. We're back at war. Now, listen. Is this war? Is this intervention? I will let you define that. I mean, the Congress hasn't defined this as war, but, you know, here's the thing. Since 1776, we have intervened in conflicts around the world over 300 times. Our foreign policy is peace by strength or soft power. Listen, here's the thing. So we have entered, we have struck, we have joined the fight with Israel. We have struck the sites of Frodo, Natzan, and Isfahan. If I'm mispronouncing that, hey, it is what it is. I apologize. And the crazy thing is that these sites have been getting struck. If you see in gray, those are the strikes that Israel has been doing since June 13th. And I think they exhausted all of their options. And then in steps this United States, we do 3 strikes and we do them over those 3 sites. And now this is kind of the end result. Here are some pictures of the Situation Room today. The president was in Florida on June 21st. They flew back. They went straight to the Situation Room. They started talking about what the plan was and what a plan it was. I mean, you can see here with different cabinet members and the president with the stoic face and folks deep in thought, and they got the high risk camera and all that good stuff. Apparently, the U.S. used B-2 bombers. They flew 37 hours from their base in Missouri. They refueled several times in midair. And the crazy thing is this is not the first time that B-2 bombers have done a 37-hour mission, except for this time it was a actual mission where they were dropping these MOP bombs into a specific theater. So they've done this before. They did this 8 years ago. This 37-hour mission, they actually landed and changed crew. This time it was the same crew. Apparently, I think they used 7 birds altogether. Don't quote me on that. But altogether, they ended up dropping 12 bunker busters on Frodo. And they ended up, so Frodo got 12 bunker busters. They ended up dropping 2 on Natsu. On Isfahan and Natsu, they dropped 30 Tomahawks from submarines. I don't know if the subs came from the Gulf, if they came from the north. I'm not sure where the submarines were located, or maybe they were in the Mediterranean and the Tomahawks just got super long range. I'm not really sure, but imagine that, like 37-hour mission. And all the reports today were talking about some B-2s that were headed to Guam. I think that was a smoke screen, because if you look at the flight tracker had these KC-135s. I grabbed this screenshot earlier. These two KC-135s that I was tracking earlier today, they absolutely came from nowhere. Their flight path seems to have started in the middle of the Mediterranean, which is not a probable thing that can happen, which leads me to believe these air tankers, these are what they're able to fuel other aircrafts. These could have been a part of the mission for those B-2s. And, you know, so, I mean, they're flying, and I think they were heading towards, I don't think Cyprus or they could have been heading toward Krita to land. And we do have forward operating bases there. We have bases there as well. So we have these tankers, a 37-hour mission. And I think that that's pretty crazy that we were able to pull that off and really just kind of keep it under wraps. So we used 12 bunker busters for the Frodo because we really wanted to make sure we penetrated that. We dropped GBU 57A massive ordnance penetrator, or MOPS, 30,000 pound bombs is what we use. Now, here's the thing. I made a video when I said I would like Congress to not be chumps and request to be classified, briefed, get an opportunity to vote for war, all that type of stuff. But to be fair, that was my opinion. This is the precedent, and I will come out to bat a little bit for the president here, because at the end of the day, Richard Haas, who is not a fan of President Trump, he identified something I thought was extremely interesting. All those critical of POTUS for not getting congressional authorization before attacking Iran are overlooking the historical record that since World War II, 99% of the time U.S. presidents have used military force, it was without explicit prior approval from Congress. He's kind of following precedent. As much as we would want him to go, as much as we would like for him to have gotten that congressional backing beforehand, you know, it's happened. So at this point, we can move past that. But so the president did speak today, and the president said that the nuclear sites are totally destroyed. He warned that if Iran does not make peace, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. He also emphasized a need for a diplomatic resolution. My question is, what does the end of the war look like for the United States? What would we accept? Would we accept for them to stop bombing Israel? Do they have to promise to stop enriching uranium? Do they have to do regime change? What does the end of the war look like? If we were going to do more attacks today, what could get them to stop us from doing those attacks today? That necessarily was not conveyed today in the president's speech, but it was just an address. He's there with the vice president. He's there with the secretary of state. He's there with the SecDef. They're all looking stoic, well-fitting suits. You know what I'm saying? They made the shit happen. We can appreciate that. And one, guys, I want you to stay tuned, because I think I know what Iran will do. And I'm going to tell you what you should be doing as a prepared citizen as we enter back into another conflict in the Middle East. Whether you call it war, whether you call it an intervention, we're back at it again, unfortunately. And this is the first thing I saw that let me know that what was going on. So on Truth Social, the president said, we have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran. All planes are now outside of the Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Frodo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The last 2 lines I think are very important that he said here. He says there is not another military in the world that could have done this. So he's selling to the point that the Brits couldn't have done this, that they couldn't have called on the French, they couldn't have called on the Germans. No one wants Iran to have nuclear weapons, but if they were going to penetrate this site, I guess it was us that had to do it. Now he's saying it's time for peace. I wonder what peace looks like. That is something I'm very curious about. And then we get Iran's first official response to after the bombing. A statement from the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The United States, a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, has committed a grave violation of UN Charter, international law, and NPT by attacking Iran's peaceful nuclear installations. The events this morning are outrageous and will have everlasting consequences. Each and every member of the UN must be alarmed over these extremely dangerous, lawless, and criminal behavior. In accordance with the UN Charter and its provisions allowing a legitimate response in self-defense, Iran reserves all options to defend its sovereignty, interest, and people. So that's their response. What do we think that Iran's going to do? This is the question I ask you. I think there are 4 things that Iran could do, and I'm going to list them from least likely to most likely. So least likely, I think the least likely thing that they could do is nothing. Imagine that we see the end of the war as them giving up enrichment of uranium, them saying no, and they do nothing. They don't bomb any of our troops. They don't activate sleeper cells. They don't do cyber attacks. they do nothing. Well, that's pretty unlikely. That's why I have that as my least, because this is N12 News. N12 News has been reporting since like 1993. This is apparently damage from the Haifa area of Israel on June 22nd, mere minutes before I started recording this video. And there's way more videos and photos of this. This is like the most like PG video or photo that I felt comfortable posting right now. They've already launched 20 to 37 missiles since the president's speech. They've had nearly a dozen hits, at least confirmed. So the do nothing part, I don't know if that's a viable thing, but it could be. That's why I still left it on this list. Let's just say these are the last 30 missiles they launched, and then they can tell their people, they're scared of us now. We're not going to do anything. Let's get back to enriching uranium. That could still be nothing. This could be their response. This could be the end of everything. I don't know if they're going to stick with that, because if they do nothing, who decides what's next? Is it the Israelis who decides what's next? Is it the Americans that decides what's next? Do we do special operations out of Pakistan? I think they're there. That's just my opinion. I think we got special. I think we have operators in Pakistan. Do we send troops in? Do we do more bombing? What happens next if the Iranians do nothing? If they said that they moved their enriched uranium days ago. What if they move it to another site and began to build more capabilities for a bomb? Do we just keep bombing? Is that the solution? What about the next one, which I think is the next thing that could happen, which is the activation of sleeper cells? Sleeper cells. Well, there are a lot of folks that are concerned about this. The NYPD steps up security around religious diplomatic sites in New York City amid Israeli strikes on Israel. Then they updated this just today, and they are now sending out more patrols around religious sites. And there's no credible threat right now, but they're always nervous and thinking about sleeper cells, especially in a large city like New York. Here's an analyst with ABC News and his thoughts about that as well.
Obviously, always been concerned about the ability of Iran, to project inside the United States. Do they have operatives here? The U.S. government has made a number of cases involving Iranian operatives in the United States attempting to impact dissidents here, that sort of thing. Also, there would be concern about just a general reaction to the notion of the U.S. government, the U.S. military, taking a military strike to the homeland of Iran. So officials here will be looking at that kind of thing as well, David.
So they have the concerns about possibility of cells that already exist in the United States. NYPD is upping their patrols and responses around religious sites. We have the possibility of dissidents or people being activated within the United States. I still think that that's number 3, not higher than that, because if they activated sleeper cells, our intel would find out quickly it was them. I think that will be detrimental to their country. I don't know if that's a viable option, but as a prepared citizen, you should still think about it. It's just still something that should be on your mind. You should still be thinking about it overall. But the next one could be just attacks on personnel within the region. If you have loved ones, if you yourself are in the region, Iran's spear of ballistic missile hits are very, very wide. And if we start to see embassies getting evacuated, diplomats getting moved, ships being moved in certain areas, that could be an indicator that that's the way that they're going to go. Here's a concern that we have about our embassy in Baghdad.
The sources in Baghdad who are saying that there is an expectation that the U.S. embassy in Baghdad will be attacked. What's interesting, and obviously we're only getting this from sources, that it is virtually empty. We're told that there is nobody there anymore, and there is an expectation that it could be attacked quite shortly, actually. And then a number of military bases in the region could be attacked. Now, there are 4 in Erbil, which is where I am.
And that's the crazy thing. He's talking about military bases, the embassy, he's in Iraq, and those are targets as well. And I could see that. I could see the possibilities of, us having to think about, are we going to have to think about our personnel, civilians, military that are in the region, and possibility for attacking for them. But this is the thing. The number one thing I think is a viable option that I think would absolutely come to pass when it came to Iran's response are cyber attacks. Cyber attacks are something I think that are incredibly likely. DHS has already come out and told U.S. organizations to check your infrastructure, check your internet, check your technology, make sure you're secure. There are already some of our ethical hackers have already started talking about if U.S. attacks Iran. They posted this article hours before U.S. attack. Will Iran attack U.S. industrial facilities? I think that's a high likelihood, and stuff that could happen is weaken the local economy, limit the availability of drinking water, limit communication and mobility and internet, restrict availability of electricity, blow up a facility, thereby using it as a weapon. You could take out routes for some of the delivery of our gas. There's so many things that can be done via a cyber attack that we have to think about. And that is something that has been buzzing as well. Cyber attack, CIA hackers, we have ethical hackers that hack on our behalf. So we call them ethical hackers, but they're still hacking our behalf. Former ethical hackers for the CIA believe that one of our biggest vulnerabilities is cyber attacks, whether it is against organizations or it's against individuals. And I think that that's something we definitely have to be aware of. What should you expect to happen next? And what should you be doing? Those are some of the biggest questions, because I kind of give you the TikTok of what's going on. I did a live stream earlier. If you didn't get a chance to check that out, you can see it, because things have changed a lot since the 3 hours I did that live stream to me recording this video. One of the first things I think you can expect to see is the force protection levels changing, for FPCON levels changing. And I think the DOD, the Department of Defense, could change that for federal buildings, bases. You might see that as an indicator that there could be a credible threat or concern of a threat. So if you see force protection levels going to like Bravo, then you need to be concerned about, why did that raise in my specific area? Because force protection levels themselves for the facilities that the U.S. owns. But if you notice that the force protection levels in a specific area are raised. So right now, let's just say I'm in the DFW area. Force protection areas would apply to mostly like the Joint Reserve Base, some federal buildings, etc. If those facilities are in Alpha and I get a notice that through my local news or something like that, they jumped to Charlie, that should be concerning for you if you're a prepared citizen, because the government is telling those operators, the people that are in charge of those levels, to be concerned about a potential threat. These are indicators that they have intelligence of a raised threat of terrorism. So pay attention to the force protection levels. That's something I think you should know. We can also pay attention to the equivalent, quote unquote, equivalent force protection levels in other countries, specifically Israel. Israel has raised their home front command to the highest emergency level. This is like their version of Delta. Okay. They've raised it to where they've put a ban on educational activities, gatherings, workplaces, except for essential businesses. And I guess they have a way to define what an essential business is. So that's the number one thing I think you can expect to happen. The next thing I think you can expect to happen is Iran's allies start to posture. We haven't heard a lot from Russia, China, some of their other allies, such as Venezuela, has already come out and condemned the attack. Who cares what Venezuela thinks? The Cubans have come out and condemned the attack. Who cares what the Cubans think? The UN has come out and they advocate for a diplomatic solution. I do care what the UN thinks. The posturing of their allies, those are from nation states. We also have to think about it from non-nation states. The Houthis, Hamas. As we look at Hezbollah, Iran has ordered Hezbollah to start attacking America and American troops. Hezbollah has already responded. They told Newsweek that they won't join the fight after U.S. attacks Iran. I think that this will upset Iran because they have funded Hezbollah in the past. But the thing is Hezbollah and Israel signed a truce in the fall of 2024. Now, they both have accused each other of breaking the truce, but Hezbollah is trying to stick within it. They're trying to stick within that truce. But that will be non-nation states posturing with Iran. So if you're in the area, that will be something you would be concerned with as well. I told you to watch out to see what our embassies do. That doesn't just mean the ones in the region, but anything, Europe or whatever, we start pulling diplomats, or something you should think about. The biggest one that I'm concerned with, hands down, is today's video sponsors, or that has to do with cyber attacks. Now, ensuring that your information is not on the dark web, you have your stuff that's not being with data brokers, you have VPNs on your different devices, I think is crazy important. And I talked about it on the live stream why I like them so much. I was a part of the 2014 hack by the Chinese that took over 1 million American citizens' information. They got my social, they got my birthday. I was still active duty military. It was pretty easy to get me a part of that hack. The U.S. paid for protection for me for 10 years. 2024, I was looking for something, or was my solution. I've been with OR for almost 2 years now. Crazy thing is, I like the fact that they reach out to data brokers and try to get me off lists. They search the dark web and see if I'm out there. They also can see if any of my passwords are jeopardized because they manage my passwords for me. They do a lot. So I think that it is keen for you to start taking a look at your passwords, your cybersecurity stance, because it's not just an attack on infrastructure. Depending on the brainiacs that they have in Iran, and I said this earlier, Iran is not a bunch of dummies. Nearly 90 million people live there. People from India go to Iran to go to college. They have a lot of people with secondary degrees. A lot of hackers are in the region. I think you should check out OR. I think you will like them. I'm a big fan of them, and that would give you a chance to see if you could try them out, see if they're right for you. I appreciate them for sponsoring this video because I think that that's a part of a good prepared citizen as well. Sleeper cells. Sleeper cells are something that you can prepare for, but there's not a lot you can do because obviously it's a sleeper cell. Is this a time when you start avoiding large gatherings? I mean, I do that all the time. That's because of my PTSD. CCW ARs, that might be a consideration where you decide that you may want to actually start to CCW an AR in like a larger bag, similar to something like this, right? Maybe a foldable pistol, whatever. That might be something that you want to do. At a minimum, CCW on your body. Pepper gel is a big thing to help you get out of sticky situations. Evac plans, bug out bags. That might be something that you take a look at. Make sure some of your stuff's not, worn out, expired, etc. That's what you should expect next. Actual tangible things that you should be doing. Talk and inform with your neighbors. I live in a neighborhood with 135 houses. I want to know some of the opinions of some of my neighbors, where they fall with this, who they sympathize with, because they could be threats. But also some of my neighbors are just ignorant. They don't know what's going on. This is the opportunity to shoot the shit, sit out. We'd like to pull out our lawn chairs, sit literally in the middle of the street and just throw back some cold ones or some bourbons or whatever. Inform your neighbors, see what they think, see what the plan is. If we have a blackout or brownout, who can I barter with? Who has the stuff that I may need? Make sure that your equipment is good to go especially for a blackout. I've done tons of videos on solar power stations, on things that can help you survive for a couple of days. If you use a gas power station, make sure you have the fuel for it, whether it's propane or diesel, whatever the hell it is. If it's dual fuel, whatever, just make sure it's good to go. Make sure that you have your actual solar panels don't have any rips on the wires and they're functioning correctly and the glass isn't broken, all that good stuff. Check your digital footprint. I talked about that earlier with cybersecurity. Checking your passwords. You can do that even without having an actual service that monitors the stuff for you. You can do that yourself. Keep yourself informed. Watch videos like mine, watch from other folks. I would just caution you from watching from channels that are just explicitly telling you we're in World War III. I don't know if that is healthy for you right now. I like to lay out the facts as I have seen, as I saw them. I kind of give you my opinion about those facts, but try to keep you on the main point. And then I give you what I plan on doing and what I think you should do. If people are giving you more than that, I caution you about watching those type of content. Maybe you fill up your gas. I mean, you don't have to, but people are going to start learning about this. They're going to panic buy. Maybe you fill up your tank one time and maybe oil prices stabilize. But worst case scenario, Iran makes a move in the Strait of Hormuz and they affect the 36% of the oil of the world's oil, 21 million barrels a day go through that strait. Maybe they make a move and they disrupt the market that way. So maybe you think about that. I don't know. Those are the things I think that are important with this situation. We're back at war. We're back in conflict in the Middle East. I guess we can't call it a war until Congress calls it that, but colloquially, okay, for the guy that knows that, for the knuckleheads that call AR-15s assault style weapons, what I don't think that they are, because they don't have a 3-round burst, but whatever. Colloquially, people think we're at war. And when we're striking in the Middle East, I can see why they think that. But comment down below, what do you think? I just said literally the other day will be within 2 weeks. Unfortunately, I was right. If this is your first time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. Everyone else, we'll speak soon.